Hey guys, it's great to be here with you all. Welcome to LP Stories Chapter 18. This is 𝗟𝗩 from Puerto Rico, de Puerto Rico. Un saludo a todos, bienvenido. I'm happy to be here to share a little bit of my story, I guess, for you all. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm drummer, percussionist. I played with so many, people, artists, musicians, singers, anything, you name it. I've been a musician basically my whole life. I grew up here in Puerto Rico. My dad is a musician. And I can only remember being part of music, always, in rehearsals, sleeping in little corners, while my parents or my dad is rehearsing with different musicians and bands here in Puerto Rico. Basically, that was my upbringing. And I want to share a little bit of that with you guys. And this segment, it's for you guys to get to know me. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, feel free to, join in and ask away and, share whatever story, or if you want to join the conversation. So growing up in Puerto Rico, it's a very interesting musical place, very vast and full of all kinds of music. Puerto Rican culture is lively, and music is very important to even communication and sharing and party and all the festivities. Music is always part of it. And this is where I grew up, so that's always been part of me. But I didn't take music seriously until I was about 9 years old, which I discovered the guitar. It was an interesting thing, because you're 9 years old, you don't know what you want to do, but you want to be a musician. You feel like music is something that, keeps you motivated somehow and out of trouble, which is important at that age. And so the guitar sort of focused me into something positive. Although the guitar lessons were short, because after 2 guitar lessons, I realized that my true passion was the drums. I believe that starting with the guitar is very important, or a string instrument or any harmonic instrument is important. Although as drummers, we focus on rhythm. The fact that I started playing guitar early gave me a different sort of focus on harmonic instruments and harmony and melody and all that. So I have a picture of, actually, to go a little bit, back from when I was a baby, age 2. This is so funny. That's me sitting on some chair that I don't remember, obviously. It's interesting how they make the pictures, from back in the day with the backgrounds and everything. But that's me as a baby. I was born in San Juan. Actually, I was born in 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗦. The hospital is not there anymore. It's gone. But I grew up here in San Juan. But, Puerto Rico, you got the capital, which is San Juan. And my family's from the Southwest, San Germán, Mayagüez, that whole Southwest area of Puerto Rico. But I grew up in San Juan. My mom was the black sheep of the family. She moved away from everybody, came to San Juan. My father did the same. In the search of more opportunity as a musician. And this is where I was born, and I grew up, and I always, we always went back and forth. I remember as a kid, there's a big story. There's somebody that I want to talk about that's been very important to a lot of people in the drumming, the percussion community, and that's 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗘𝗦. And I have a beautiful story that my mom told me, as a matter of fact, about Giovanni, which he to me is a very important person in my growing up as a musician, and I love him dearly. But anyway, my mom went to see a show that my dad was playing. 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗑 was playing percussion. My mom told me that I was inside, you know, her belly. Obviously, I wasn't born yet, but 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗑 played a conga solo, and my mom said that I freaked out inside of her. You know, I was like moving a lot and getting really nervous, I guess. I don't know. But apparently my mom was in shock because it happened right when 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗑 was playing the percussion. And she realized then that something was brewing in, you know, with music. I guess with me, even as a not even being born yet. So anyway, I always exhibited musical, I don't know, how do you call it? I was always musically inclined, I guess. And although I didn't know that I was going to be a musician when I was in kindergarten, which there should be a picture somewhere around here. When I was in kindergarten, there it is. I was the master of ceremony speaker as a, I guess, 4 or 5-year-old. I to be honest, I don't remember. I think I was 5. My mom is way better than I am when it comes to these things. But yeah, so I was already, you know, in charge of the show as a kid. Anyway, I kept, you know, my dad is a great musician, and I remember there was a moment. I remember when he was playing with Menudo. He played with Menudo, yeah. My dad was a keyboardist for Menudo for a while. Everybody knows Menudo. It's weird that I play with Ricky Martin nowadays because it's sort of like full circle, you know. All of a sudden, here I am playing with Ricky Martin, you know, 40 years later. My dad played with Menudo when Ricky was in the band, and afterwards. And as a kid, you know, I always grew up in concerts and big, you know, arenas and venues and full of people. And at the same time, you know, somehow that rubbed off on me, and it was just the transition of becoming a musician was natural. You know, it was never something that sort of I thought of. You know, it wasn't something forced. It just happened. And I knew that I was going to become a musician. And one day when I rediscovered the instruments, and it was a beautiful thing. But my father was always aware of music. He always had great music in the house. I remember as a kid playing hide and seek or hanging out in the park. I could come back home, and as soon as the elevator opened, I could hear the music, you know, whether it be whatever, Weather Report, Miles, Yellow Jackets. My dad is a keyboardist, so he was always into searching for sounds, and even Halen, you know, Van Halen at the time. He was he would always love to do that intro, the Van Halen intro. I always remember that just to get attention. It was the funniest thing. And so growing up, you know, music was always around, and obviously then, you know, I discovered the guitar. And like I said, was saying before, then I decided to play drums because it came natural to me to play drums. You know, when I was in my second guitar lesson, and there was a big drum set sitting in the corner, like double bass. You know, I guess there were like 6 toms, you know, 20 cymbals. I remember it was a Yamaha drum set, and I don't remember the cymbals to be exact, but I know it was a Yamaha drum set. It was a green Yamaha from the 80s. And it was like love at first sight. I got on the drums. I told the teacher, I was like, could I, you know, play the drums? And the guy said, yeah, go ahead. And everybody was sort of freaked out because whatever I was trying to play on the guitar, or whatever song I was trying to learn how to play on the guitar, it came natural to me on the drum set. It was like, yeah, this is how you do it. And I knew it right away. And it was the first time that my dad had seen me play drums. And everybody was sort of freaked out, and they sort of got it. But my dad is a clever guy. He was like, when I told my dad that same day, I guess, or at some point, I remember I told my dad that I wanted to play drums. He was like, well, you're going to have to prove to me that you want to play the drums, because I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars on a drum set for you to then switch to playing trumpet or something. It was the funniest thing. So I was like, okay, I'll prove to you that I want to be a drummer. And that's when I focused on something, and it was an instant thing where I did it 24/7, you know. And this brings me to another subject. As a kid, any kid growing up, I think that it's very important that we keep our kids somehow occupied on positive, you know, stuff, healthy stuff, whether it be sports or music or art or dance or whatever it is. That's so important to kids. It gives them a great foundation of you know, all kinds of things to do to keep, you know, focused on something and not getting to the, you know, the wrong side of the road, obviously. That did it to me, because growing up, you know, we all go through moments in life, and we all have our story. It's not always great. You know, we all go through our processes in life, but I always want to keep it in the positive. And it's a great thing to talk about now, especially going through this pandemic, you know, the fact that how to keep positive, and, you know, in any situation in life, you know, somehow we got to find a way to stay, you know, the course, and keep doing it, you know, to the best of our ability somehow. And it doesn't mean that we don't, you know, fall sometimes, and, you know, it can get dark. It's part of it, but we just got to go through it, and always try to, you know, be great, and stay the course, and always think of, you know, there's always going to be, things will always pass, you know, whether, you know, whatever bad stuff we're going through, it'll always go away at some point, and it'll be better. And a lot of times from my struggles, I've learned that those bad moments give you strength. Obviously, I don't want to sound too cliche, you know, but they give you strength to overcome later obstacles, I guess, in life. You know, it's all a process, and it's not easy, but, you know, I'm sure we can all do it, and if we keep at it. But anyway, music kept me super focused, and I would play all day long, driving everybody nuts. I promise you that. I would play all day long in my room. My dad got me a practice pad, and some sticks. And he said, you're going to have to prove to me that you wanted to be a drummer, because I'm not going to spend any money on any instruments unless you show me that you really wanted to play drums. So after a year of banging on this pad to the point that it was destroyed, Christmas came along, and he was like, listen, you know, maybe I'll get you a drum set for Christmas. Who knows? And I was like, oh, great. Okay. So I was really, you know, looking forward to Christmas, to getting a drum set for the first time. I had to be 9 years old, you know, late on my 9th. I remember Christmas Day came along, and I woke up. It was early in the morning, and I'm like ready to, 6 in the morning, I get up, come out of my bedroom looking for the drum set. I grew up in a small 2-bedroom apartment. And my dad used to have all his keyboards and his stuff set up in the living room. And a lot of musicians would come and rehearse in the house. And everybody in the building knew my father, obviously, because he was a musician, and he would play with everything open. He didn't care about neighbors or anything. He would just blast everything. And, you know, the whole building would get a concert every time there was a rehearsal in the house. And so I got up from my bedroom, and I came to the living room thinking that that's where the drums were going to be Christmas Day, and there was no drums. So I automatically got freaked out. I was like, oh my God, my father promised that he was going to get me some drums. He didn't get no drum sets. And I was like freaking out. My dad heard me. He got up, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Where's my drums? You know, I was mad at him. I was like, where, you promised you were going to get me a drum set. Where's the drum set? He was like, oh, you know, I couldn't do it, you know, but here, take these socks, bring them to my room or something. And I was like, well, I got mad at him. We started to argue and everything. It was 6 in the morning or something. Hold up. And then next thing I know, I go to the bedroom, and he had him set up in his own, his bedroom. So I couldn't see him, and it was like, whoa. And that brings me to this next picture of me with my first drum set in my bedroom as a 10-year-old. Oh my God, this was my bedroom. And if you can see in the background, this picture is amazing because first of all, that drum set was a 𝗟𝗩𝗑𝗘. I don't even know if that brand even exists. It was a 𝗟𝗩𝗑𝗘. The drums were huge. I was a little kid. I could barely hit the toms. It was I think it was 13 or 12, 13, 16. They were power toms. Anyway, in the background, the window is wide open. And yes, I took over my dad in that sense that I would play at any hour with everything wide open, and the neighbors hated me because I've never heard anybody sound great when they're starting to play drums. In the beginning is a tedious process, and it could be pretty annoying, especially if you have no idea what drumming is. It could be noise. So anyway, I kept playing every day. When I got my first drum set, it was an incredible feeling. And there's another anecdote from a friend of my dad's. I think it was a year into me playing drums. A friend of my dad came over one time, and he saw me playing. He heard that I was playing drums. He came over. He was like, so you're playing drums? Nice. And I was like, yeah, as a 10-year-old, yeah, I'm playing drums. You're a drummer? I'm a drummer, or whatever. And he was like, well, the day that you can play Tom Sawyer from Rush, I'll call you a drummer. And that to me was like ignited this intense feeling of, okay, I am a drummer. I'm going to play that stuff. And I had never heard Rush. And then I heard Rush for the first time. And it was Tom Sawyer. And the day after, I told him, come over. And he came over, and I sat him on my bed. And I played Tom Sawyer for him as a 9 or 10-year-old. And I guess he was freaked out. He couldn't say anything, but I played it. It was probably the first song that I learned how to play as a kid. And yes, I had an intense connection with Rush. I was so into him for a while. And that was like my first connection with like a drummer that is part of a leader, I guess, as a musician. And anyway, from then on, I kept playing. Music was always a thing, at home. It was interesting because growing up, from age 10, 11, 12, I took it really seriously early on. When I decided to be a musician, that was it. And that brings me to a subject. Again, I'm improvising in all of this. But I'm trying to keep it focused. But anyway, it brings me to a subject of the fact that, growing up as a kid and playing music, it was when I decided to be a drummer, it was a thing. I was like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to look back. And there was never a question of what else am I going to do, if this doesn't work out. That never crossed my mind. And sometimes that's something that people should understand, that once you choose to do something in life, you got to go through with it, and for being a musician, I think that's super important, because you can't have any doubts. You got to go through it. You got to, I guess, I never questioned it. It's like when I decided to be a musician, that was it. I'm a musician, and I'm going to do anything that I need to do in my power to be the best and keep growing and be the best that I could be with my possibilities. So I kept playing with bands. There's a couple more pictures, I think, over there. When I was a kid, playing, jamming with my friends, in backyards. And, I had a friend that had a great, backyard. We would go jam over there at his house. That picture actually got to me later on from the bass player's mom. She sent it to me. She had it, and I couldn't believe it. It's probably, I didn't grow up with social with devices and stuff. So I got my first computer when I was probably 15 years old, and it was a weird clone computer that I barely ever used. I didn't know how to work it, or it was a dial-up computer, and it was horrible. It was the worst thing in the world. So I never even cared about it. And growing up, you know, my parents weren't really into taking pictures and videos and stuff like that. I wish I had video. I don't know. It's a weird thing. There's one video of myself playing drums at Ace Music in Orlando when I moved to Orlando, and this will bring me to another chapter on this conversation. But anyway, when I moved to Florida, which was, I guess, after, you know, when I had to be 13, 14, it came a point in my growing up that my father had to make a decision to leave Puerto Rico. And this, I'm sure this has happened to many people. And it's a tough situation. And I guess the older you get, the more you understand. I had to leave Puerto Rico because there isn't really much else for me to do here. You know, opportunity in Puerto Rico is scarce, I guess. But again, you can always, you always will try to do the best that you can with what you have. But, you know, we have a, you know, we as Puerto Ricans, we can always go to the U.S. That's a beautiful thing. It's a thing that not many, you know, can do. You just get on and go to the U.S. in search of a better future. And my dad, when I was 13, 14, after I was trying to get into a musical school here in Puerto Rico, but I couldn't get in because there wasn't any space as a drummer. They wanted me to play, I don't know, some other instrument that I wasn't into. I knew that I was going to be a drummer, so they didn't have any space for me to be a drummer. So my dad had to make the tough decision of leaving. And at the same time, at that point, music was changing in Puerto Rico. My dad had a lot of gigs in the hotels, and he would play with great bands. Like I mentioned before, Giovanni used to play with my father, talking about percussionists. Richie Flores played with my father a lot. John Benitez used to play with my father. John Benitez is an amazing bass player that I basically grew up with him, or he grew up around, you know, my father. And these musicians are very important. David Sanchez also, you know, a lot of people in the industry that have come from Puerto Rico remember my dad, because my dad was one of the pioneers and the guys that had all the gigs in the hotels, you know, be lobby bar, or if they had a big band, you know, my dad would be the musical director, and he would hire all these great musicians to play with him. I think my dad was one of the first guys to have a trio with John Benitez and Giovanni or Richie and Latin jazz music. And just to keep talking about great musicians, you know, I always tell anybody growing up, any kid that, you know, is growing up, I always want to share the importance of history. To me, history is so important. Knowing the legends, knowing all the people that came before you, that paved the way, that to me has always been super monumental and important, just because it gives you security and understanding where music has come from and where it's going, you know, and it also gives you a vast vocabulary of great music and different styles and also great stories. You know, I think a lot of people forget that we are storytellers. And even in film and in everything, storytelling is probably the most important, you know, aspect of any artist is telling a beautiful story. But anyway, obviously I spoke about Giovanni, I spoke about Richie and all those guys, but we always have to remember who are the greats before Giovanni, who are the greats before all these amazing players that we know of today, because Giovanni comes from somewhere. There were great musicians that inspired Giovanni to be who he is. You know, we all take from different musicians, and that makes us, that evolves into who we are. So to move on and keep going with the conversation, So anyway, education, you know, I moved to Florida, obviously, and that brings me to the education part. Once my father decided that it was time for us to move on, to try to get, you know, be more exposed to other things, we moved to Florida. I moved to Orlando, Florida when I was 13, 14 years old. And it was a big change because I didn't know English very well. Obviously, as a kid growing up, the whole shock of changing, it could be harsh, but for me, it was very positive. You know, I took it and I took it as positively as I could. And to me, it was a beautiful thing because when I moved to Orlando, first of all, is a whole different, you know, is a different place all around. And change is always a great thing to go through. It's a positive thing. And at the same time, when I started to search for schools, well, my father moved to a county, and that's where I went to school. And the high school is called 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗘 High School. And they had a great musical program. 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗘 High School is a, you know, public school, and I never grew up in a school that offered music. So that was the first thing that became it was like the best thing that I could have gotten to once I moved to Florida, and it focused me on something positive. Because if I didn't have that, it probably would have been horrible. But anyway, music, when I got to 𝗟𝗩𝗦𝗘 and I realized that they had a drum line and all these things, you know, to do, it was incredible. It was like I reached, you know, the skies or something, you know, if you want to be, use a word, whatever. So drumline was a big thing, and that I studied a lot of rudimental drumming. And at the same time, when I moved to Florida, because I was in my teenage years, that's when I started to really dig into my heritage, into where I came from. Because when I was in Puerto Rico growing up, I just wanted to play rock music as a drummer. You know, the drums really pioneered in rock music. You know, they were like the main focus, aside from guitar players, obviously. And so drums were a big thing, and I wanted to play, you know, rock music, Van Halen. I grew up in the metal world, so whatever, any metal band, Metallica, all those bands were big, and I still love all these bands. As you can see in the background, I have lots of posters and stuff from bands. I grew up in the era of posters and black lights, and I had a lot of those as a kid, especially when I was in high school. Today, to this day, I don't know, I love posters, and I love to have them signed by the artist, and it's a thing. But anyway, when I was in high school, it was a beautiful thing. I studied, you know, a lot of rudimental drumming, and I got into my heritage when I had to realize, when I got to the school and I had to dig deep inside and see who I was. People would ask me, is like, so you're from Puerto Rico, what rhythms do you guys play in Puerto Rico? What's the folklore? And I was like, oh, I don't know. This maybe. And it wasn't until I got to Florida that I really started to study the percussion, the percussion instruments, especially the conga. The conga drums were my second passion. Although I don't play them as much anymore for various reasons. I try to always play the conga drum. Because it's melodic and it's raw. You're playing the instruments with your hands, your bare hands. It's like, it's so spiritual in a way for me to play conga drums, because they're, you know, the ancestry of the instrument, you know, coming from, you know, the beginning of it all, from Africa, from the djembe and how it transformed into the conga drum, and the vocabulary, how in Africa you have tribes that communicate with the talking drum. You know, it's language. It's an amazing instrument. And, you know, although you can connect the melodic part with the rhythmic part in the drum set, and with the conga drum, it's easier because you have different notes, and you can tune the drums with different notes, and you can play melodically. And a lot of great conga players are melodic. Patato was like a tres, the tres player. He would play the drums like he was a tres, a Cuban tres player, the notes and how he would play melodically. Also Anga was very melodic, and Giovanni was all these great percussionists. They used the melodic part of the instrument, and that was the first thing that got to me. But it wasn't until I got to Florida and I started to go back and to really dig inside and see who I was growing up as a kid, that I realized that I needed to study the folklore, my background, bomba, plena, salsa, and all these things. They became my focus when I was there, and that's when I discovered Latin jazz, and I just got immersed in that music. I remember Horacio Negro Hernandez when he first became popular at the Modern Drummer Festival. He was playing with Santana. That blew my mind. I was like, what is this? This is incredible. This is what I am. This is what I can relate to. And so many other great musicians from Puerto Rico, that kept feeding that interest. Giovanni also lived in Florida. I used to get together with him at his house. I would get together with so many different percussionists and study. Raúl Berríos, a great teacher, percussionist from Puerto Rico. He had moved to Florida at the time, and I would meet with him too. There was a great, back in another, a little bit before I moved to Florida, but this was also very important. Carlos Cordova, a great friend of my dad. He was the first person to show me the songo on the drum set. So I'm mentioning all these people. Sometimes it's so hard to remember the history and all these names that have been so pivotal and important in my growing up. And aside from all the musicians that basically show you, also family members, friends, they're also super important. They also inspire us in so many ways. But anyway, then later, that's when I started to really study percussion. It was when I was in Florida, and in high school, I was in bands as well. I always kept playing drums, and I had a band called Joy Lies Within, I think it is, and somewhere in there, there's a picture. I think, yeah, that was my band. I played with those guys. It's like one of the first bands that I played with. There was a legit band. We did a couple of records and called Track Spotting with a great producer from Florida called Joe Skinner. That he was very important in my upbringing in Florida because he was so positive and influential. And he would always give me great advice. And I was talking about the first time that I recorded a video, since I didn't have that growing up. It was Joe Skinner and my father. My father was working, when we first moved to Florida, my father worked at Ace Music. And I remember Joe was like, we got to get this kid an endorsement. He's awesome, blah, 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 blah. And Joe Skinner was the manager in the drum department at Ace Music in Orlando. And Joe and my dad opened the store after hours. They set up a drum set for me. I remember it was a Legend drum set. They don't even make those anymore, but it was a pretty amazing drum set. It was different. They set up a drum set and they made me do a solo and play rhythms. I was 15, 16 years old with a camcorder, and they recorded it. The video, I have no idea where it is. And that's probably one of the things that I miss the most. I wish I had that. It's a great moment in time, I guess. And Joe did that for me. He was incredible. And I will always appreciate him, although he's not with us anymore. There's also another anecdote that I want to share. Robert Columbus, another important person in my growing up in Florida. When I first moved to Florida, I did not have a drum set. And Robert Columbus, he saw me practicing at Ace Music, because on Saturdays, on the weekends, I would go in and work, for a few hours to set up drum sets, clean drum sets. As a 16-year-old, it kept me super, it was the only time that I really had to play when I first got to Florida. And at the same time, I got to meet incredible musicians doing this. I remember I set up a drum set for Alex Acuña's clinic one time. He told me he remembers. I told him one time, I was like, listen, a long time ago, you did a clinic in Ace Music, and I set up your drums for that clinic. And he said he remembered. I hope he did. he's a really honest person, so I'm sure he did. And also, I did the same thing for a 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗏 clinic, and I set up their drums as a kid, working at Ace Music on the weekends. And at the same time, I got to practice. And so anyway, Robert sees me practicing on an electronic kit. I didn't want to make a lot of noise. There wasn't really anybody in the drum department at the time. And he comes in, he's like, "Who are you? What's your name? Dude, you play drums, you're amazing, blah, blah. Let's hang out." And we started to hang out. And he asked me, he's like, "What drums do you play?" And I was like, "I don't have a drum set." He was like, "What? You don't have a drum set? Dude, come to my house." And so I went to his house and we started playing, and he gave me a drum set. He gave me a drum set. And that, to this day, is an incredible thing. I didn't have a drum set, and he was just like, "Here, have a drum set." I remember it was a 𝗟𝗏, it's a Rockstar 𝗟𝗏, a red wine color, whatever, old school 90s with the long lugs. And Robert was super cool, man. We used to get together and play all day. He had everything that I dreamed of. He had a studio with an incredible set of speakers, and we would practice there all day. We would play the Toto and different bands that he liked, that I liked. We would play and have the speakers blasting. We didn't have to wear headphones. It was super natural, the whole, to play with a sound system, blast it out till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. We didn't care. Nobody said anything. It was the best of times, and I will always cherish those moments. They were amazing. And anyway, from there, I think I have a picture of my drum line too, since we're talking about this. There's me. That had to be my sophomore year. Oh, no, that's actually my freshman year. I was in 9th grade, and I was pretty tall, as you can see. Not really. It was hard because I had to play that freaking drum. I had never played marching music, and that was horrible to carry. It was horrible on my back. They made me do push-ups, and they oh my God, they bullied me so much. All these guys that I love, that I miss. Great people. My high school my high school band teacher was amazing. He was supportive. He always pushed me to be better. And every time that I was, I was hard to deal with, I know. And Mr. 𝗟𝗩, he was awesome, and he always kept me in check. And anytime that I was getting into trouble, he would, grab my ear and be like, "Hey, listen, you gotta, focus and do your thing." And he was great because he had a great instructor for us, Todd Layton. He's so important to me, as an instructor, because he knew that I had a special talent for the drum set. And although we would play all the marching stuff and all the rudimental stuff, he would always say, "Hey, play the drums," and he would always support me playing drum set. And he told me, "Get into the jazz band, play here, play there." I played in the high school jazz band. And it was awesome. Those things, those moments growing up were so important, were so great for any kid to grow up with those possibilities. It brings you to what I am today, I guess. It gave me a great foundation. And anyway, from there, I came back to Puerto Rico when I graduated high school. And I didn't go to college right away. I wanted to come to Puerto Rico and automatically indulge myself in the music scene in Puerto Rico, because I knew as a 17-year-old that music in Puerto Rico, or the scene in Puerto Rico, had so much to offer. And it was going to be a great learning experience for me. And I played with so many incredible musicians when I was in Puerto Rico at that time. But anyway, I have before we get to that, which that would be Berkeley, I have a couple other pictures that I want to show you. I have a 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗏. I saw 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗏 at a clinic with Robert Columbus. That's Robert right there. And that's Terry in the middle, and that's me. And this had to be in 1995. And it was a thoroughbred music. you know, I miss these music stores. You know, these places were so great to go and check out instruments and learn and see great clinics. And there's something about seeing live music that I miss. And it's unfortunate that we're going through this pandemic, because I believe that nothing can, how do you say this? How can I phrase this? No matter how much technology we have, although it is an amazing tool to have, no matter how much technology we have, the connection is missing from seeing live music. When you see a live performer, when you hear and feel the energy of music, you know, right away, you know that is something very special. We connect differently, and I think that technology is a great thing to sort of connect, but at the same time, we're missing the real connection, which is human interaction. Human interaction is very important, and we feed off of each other, you know, talking and looking at somebody's face, not like now that I'm seeing my face on the screen. You know, it's a weird feeling to talk to myself, you know. If I was talking to somebody, or if I was, although I'm talking to all of you, although I can't see you guys, I wish I could see everybody that I'm talking to, because you react differently. And that's human interaction. And this will never be, how do you say it? I can't even think of the word in English, you know. This will never change, I guess. Human interaction is probably the most important thing for us. And we appreciate technology because it brings us together, but at the same time, we can never forget to connect as human beings, to be able to look at somebody in the eye and see through them. That's important. Anyway, a great moment also, you know, there's another picture of me and Orlando Sanchez with 𝗟𝗩 𝗟𝗑𝗦. I got this picture not too long ago, and Orlando brought, you know, gave me this picture not too long ago. We were playing together. Orlando is a great percussionist from the Orlando area. He moved to Puerto Rico right now, but he was great. He was always doing gigs there, and he was always, we did a clinic together. He was also very supportive of me growing up, but as you can see, I'm a baby over there. And this was at a show that we did. I forget the name of the venue. It was a homage to Giovanni, and he was there, and I played a song. I was invited, and this was a beautiful moment. Yeah, I want to say that it was 94. It was maybe 95. It was somewhere around there. As you can see, it brings us again to Giovanni. Giovanni has been always so important to me, you know, and you know, in music and my growth as a human being, and I love him dearly, and I want to keep, you know, talking about him as much as I can. So anyway, so then I came to Puerto Rico, and I got myself into the music scene here, and I was playing with so many musicians and doing so many gigs and growing, and it was amazing. And that's where I got a scholarship to go to Berkeley. Berkeley had a thing called Berkeley in Puerto Rico. They came to Puerto Rico, and they, you know, it's like going to the major leagues. They gave me a full ride to go to Berkeley. And that was actually an accident. It's another great anecdote. My moms are very special because they have a sense, you know, special sense, you know, that usually is right. Is usually right. And I didn't want to go to, I didn't want to go to Berkeley. I didn't care about going to college at 17, 18 years old. I was playing gigs. I was by myself. I lived on my own already. I was making money. I was having the time of my life, and I wasn't even thinking of going to college. I was already a musician, you know, before going to Berkeley. And this is important too. You know, I was already making a living, you know. I had a car, I had gigs, you know, and I was making money, and I was playing with great musicians in the scene. But my mom was like, listen, I think you should go check it out. It's a great opportunity. You never know what could come out of that. And I didn't have, I mean, I did have the money, but to go and audition and be part of the Berkeley and Puerto Rico thing. But they had a thing where they were like, listen, we need drum sets. If you can bring a drum set and let us use it for the couple of weeks for the program, the duration of the program, you can, you know, you're still eligible to get, you know, the scholarship and you don't have to pay. So I was like, sure, I'll bring my drums. So I brought my drum set, and that's what we used for those couple of weeks. And there I met 𝗟𝗡 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗔. He's a guru. He's a mentor. He's a guy that basically saw the potential, and he, thanks to him, I went to Berklee, and I love him dearly. And he's always been a mentor, you know, aside from others. But that in that moment in my lifetime, 𝗟𝗡, you know, he was my mentor, and he showed me the way, and I went through the process of the, you know, the whole program, those 2 weeks, and I received that scholarship. And then I went to Berklee in 2000. It was actually in 2000. I remember that was the Y2K era, you know, the switch from the switch of millennia from 99 to 2000. Everybody was freaking out, saying that computers were going to crash and whatever not. And I got a gig for a week in a cruise ship to get some money so that I could go to Berklee, because, you know, that was going to be my ticket to go to Berklee. So I did a cruise ship gig for the change of millennia for that week. And I did it for like a week. I made about $7,000, and it was a horrible gig. I don't know if I'll ever get back on a cruise ship, to be honest. I don't want to say never. You never know. We're musicians. We got to be open to opportunity. But it was a rough experience, just because, you know, there was an age gap between me and the other musicians. I was a kid, but I was focused on the next thing, which was making the money so that I could go to college and go to Boston. And that was a beautiful moment in time. So I got that money and I went to Boston, and I got to Boston on the winter of 2000. It was cold as hell. I showed up to an apartment of a friend of mine that they hadn't been there in about 6 months. That place was crazy. Oh my God, I will never forget. It was horrible. It was dirty. There had been nobody there, and I had to basically arrive at a place that I didn't know anybody. And it was just, oh my God, it was such an incredible, intense moment. And so I started Berklee in 2000. I went there from 2000 to 2003, and there I met 𝗟𝗣𝗦𝗘𝗦, you know, percussionist. He's a legendary percussionist, also a big mentor of mine. 𝗟𝗩𝗙 Castillo also was super important. I had great teachers, Rick Considine, Dave DeCenso. To this day, I still love Dave. So many great musicians, and also people that had gone, you know, were also mentors. 𝗟𝗩𝗙 𝗦𝗘𝗦 was a mentor of mine. He came to, every year he would come to the percussion festival, and we would hang out. 𝗟𝗩𝗙 𝗦𝗘𝗦 and I have a funny connection. Obviously, 𝗟𝗩𝗙 is from Puerto Rico, and he's from Cabo Rojo. My family's from Cabo Rojo. You know, we have a lot. He played with my father too, you know, and 𝗟𝗩𝗙 is like a genius, you know, a rhythmic and historical genius. And he would always be supportive at the Berklee percussion festivals. Same with Giovanni, same with Horacio Hernandez, which there, you know, I actually met Horacio way before in Puerto Rico, he came for a clinic, and we hung out at a jazz club afterwards. And they asked me to sit in. It was William Cepeda playing trombone, and I sat in, and Horacio and Rick Latham, actually. Rick Latham, they were both the instructors, and they came to hang out because it was the place to hang out and listen to jazz. And they would sit in, and they asked me to sit in, and I played, and it was an incredible moment. And that's where I first met Horacio. And then we met in Berklee, and the connection, the friendship, the mentorship, all that took place throughout. And what else can I say? And then, you know, all kinds of gigs happen, you know, throughout. I've always been a musician. So, you know, sometimes it's hard to me to sort of segment my life, just because I've always been what I am since a young kid. I've been a musician my whole life, and it's just been, you know, exponentially growing. But I've always been doing this, although I've been going to Berklee and stuff in high school. And, you know, when I was at Berklee, I paid for my own housing, and I still had to play gigs when I was in Boston. I did recordings. One of my first recordings was Steve Jenkins. He's a great bass player, plays with Screaming Headless Torsos. He has his own records. Adam Deitch recorded, and we both shared the drums chair of his first record when I was at Berkeley. And it, you know, I was doing local gigs. I would play every Thursday at Wally's, whether it be percussion or drums. Francisco Mela, he was an incredible influence and great friend. He helped me from the first day that I got to Berkeley, and I think he was the first person that I sat with and we had dinner. Same with 𝗟𝗑𝗦𝗘 Castrillo. There was a piano player called 𝗟𝗓𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗡, which also 𝗟𝗓𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗡 got me my first gig after Berkeley, or actually I want to say my first gig to move to New York, which was with 𝗟𝗩𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗡, violinist from 𝗟𝗦𝗙 𝗦𝗡 and Celia Cruz and so many other giants. Well, when Alfredo moved back to the US, I was playing timbales with him. And that was my first gig. I would drive every Wednesday night to, actually, no, I'm sorry. I would drive every Wednesday to New York in the morning. We would rehearse in the afternoon and drive back to Boston that same night, Israel and I. Israel was the musical director, and Israel thought that I would be a great timbalero for that band. And that was like my first gig in New York. Before that, my first tour was with 𝗟𝗩 while I was at Berkeley. 𝗟𝗩 is a metal band from Puerto Rico, and we toured all over the US and Canada. And this was my second year at Berkeley. I actually took a semester off. Actually, this happened before 9/11. So it was right before 9/11. I remember I was in Puerto Rico taking a break from college because it was in the middle of the semester. And 9/11 happened, unfortunate. But I also was playing with Simon Shaheen, which was ��𝗓𝗦 Haddad. It's funny how once you get to college, your instructors or your peers, or they help you get the gigs. It's incredible. ��𝗓𝗦 believed in me, and he got me a gig with Simon Shaheen, which is a master oud and violinist, and that was an amazing gig. It was totally different. I would play minor percussion like bongos, cajon, textures, and I had Matt Kilmer playing all the frame drums, and ��𝗓𝗦 Haddad as well would be leading the percussion section. And this was a monumental gig for me, and I always speak about these gigs because it was a Middle Eastern gig. So here I am, if you think about all the diversity in my growing up as far as music, from playing metal music, playing rock, playing salsa, playing Latin jazz, playing all the rumba stuff, all the folkloric rhythms that I learned growing up, and then playing Middle Eastern music, and then eventually always linked by jazz and improvisation and having your own voice. These things are all connected with that. But it's incredible, now that I think about it, it makes for who I am, the diversity in music, and the musicality that you learn from saying yes to all of these opportunities is incredible. And I'm so grateful of that. And what can I say? I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't see anybody sending any questions, but that's okay. I can talk for hours. 𝗟𝗓𝗩 Curtis. Oh my God. 𝗟𝗓𝗩 Curtis. 𝗟𝗓𝗩 Curtis. Man, great to see you. 𝗟𝗓𝗩 is an incredible player. Yes, I play drums with Paoli, Rico. I play with Paoli many times. Paoli is also, this is the thing. I was talking about 𝗟𝗓𝗩 and now Paoli. So, man, 𝗟𝗓𝗩 and Lucas Curtis are two brothers, and they are incredibly talented. And Lucas is my bro because he would do my harmony test for me in Berkeley because I was too busy, playing and hanging out, and Lucas would do my my harmony test. If 𝗟𝗩 is watching, and 𝗟𝗩 and I, we did so many gigs in Connecticut. To 𝗟𝗩 and Curtis and Lucas are incredible musicians, talented, and we did so many gigs in Connecticut. They're from Connecticut, from Puerto Rico. You know, again, people that you meet along the way. So I want to, you know, I also wanted to talk about Paoli, and then I want to bring somebody on to the show. Paoli, I met him when I was 17, and Paoli in Puerto Rico I met him as soon as I got here. Paoli and I have become friends, you know, all around. He's been a friend of mine, like a dear friend, and we just have a musical connection, and I'm so glad that he is who he is, and he also was very important in my upbringing because he gave me the opportunity to play in his band, play his music, record his music, and everybody knows Paoli. He's a legendary percussionist. He's now playing with Santana, and I can consider him a dear friend. And yeah, it's, you know, incredible to be part of these things. So anyway, I want to bring somebody around. 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗥𝗘𝗦. 𝗟𝗩, are you around?
Tony! I look like the bad guy from Batman. Sorry.
Hey, I'm home, so I don't have to wear a mask.
Oh man, you gotta stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and your journey, man. I really appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it myself. I'm honored to be here, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, man. I had no idea your dad played with Menudo. That's amazing.
Yeah, he did. It's an incredible story, man. And it's funny because that story sort of resumes itself to a moment. The first time that I brought my dad to a Ricky Martin show in Orlando, we were on our break after sound check, and we were you know, having lunch or dinner, and it was the first time that my dad had, you know, met Ricky after working with him in Menudo, and they were both like, you know, Ricky just freaked out. He was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe," you know, and he realized that I'm his son, and here I am playing drums for him. So it was mind-boggling, you know.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. Well, I love everything you were saying, especially about the, you know, Ace Drum Shop, about having that community store, you know, the drum shop like that kind of, that nurtures passion, you know what I mean? It's a great place to hang out, and you're learning, you're watching other cats play as well, and that's much needed. That's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. It's that human connection, man, that obviously we're all missing right now with this COVID situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is the most important thing, is human relations, you know. And I grew up with that, and it's unfortunate that we're going through this, but at the same time, you know, I know it'll get better, and we will be back on track. And yes, the positive side of this thing to me is that now that we're not really able to do it, once we are back into doing it, it's going to be much more important to us, and it's going to be so much, you know, real. We're going to not take it for granted, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, brother. Absolutely. But that was going to be one of my questions, like, you know, because right now everybody's in quarantine, or there's a lot of guys who are not out there gigging. What do you do to keep yourself sane and healthy, and just in shape, and just in general, just keep your spirits up high? And anything you could shout out to the people, let people know, to any kind of advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You know, I can't say, you know, I'm not perfect. I go through a lot of moments of depression, you know, especially throughout this process. You know, in the beginning, I was dark, man. I was dark. I didn't know what I was going to do. First of all, because, you know, I made some choices in life. You know, I realized that as a musician, you have to be smart about your spendings and how you make money, because, you know, it's a very sometimes you have gigs and sometimes you don't have gigs. You know, it's not constant, although you want it to be, and you never know what's going to happen. So I invested money in properties, and this year was going to be very important because I was starting a tour with Ricky, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic happening, and I saw it. You know, I saw it happening. As a matter of fact, I told the guys in the band, my compadre 𝗟𝗩𝗙𝗘, it's a cool story. I told them, I was like, dude, this is serious. And they sort of blew me off. You know, they're like, they're talking about, don't be so dramatic. I was like, dude, this is serious. You know, it's happening. Yeah. And I took a trip to Puerto Rico, and I was here, and I was, you know, I basically, I was here for like a week, and I was like hesitant to get back on the plane to go to Mexico because we had a gig in Monterrey. And that's when the shit hit the fan, you know. Yeah. And I had to come right back. You know, they canceled the show. It was March 14th, I'm saying. So, you know, I was in a dark place because that money, I needed it. You know, and I bought a property for a lot of money, and I need to pay mortgage now. So all of a sudden you're in a position where shit is getting real, you know. Yeah, absolutely. And you can get really dark, but man,
got to pay the bills.
You got to pay the bills. But I'm gonna tell you right now, music saved me, and I sent you some videos of me playing with the 𝗟𝗩 drums. As you can see right there, those 𝗟𝗩 drums kept me mentally focused. I played music. Right. I exercise. I try to keep healthy. You know, I'm not too obsessive about it because, you know, we all have to live. You know, it's okay to have a drink every once in a while. You know, yeah. Everybody, you know, as long as we're conscious and in control of it. You know, we don't want to let it control us. It's okay to have fun and to have a great life. But you know, it's good to exercise. I do some exercise. I'm not really exercising that much anymore. You know. But I do a lot of mountain biking. I surf. I do paddle boarding. I run. I do a lot of exercise, and I keep myself focused, you know, with music, and in every way that I can. You know, I'm always listening to music. I'm always checking out guys. I'm helping. I'm teaching. You know, I got a lot of kids, man. You know, a big reason why I'm here in Puerto Rico right now is to mentor a lot of kids. Like, they helped me, you know. Me growing up, man, I had so many musicians that were so important to me growing up because they kept me focused, and they would share their knowledge, and that it was like feeding the urge to learn. So I feel that at this point, I guess, me being here in this moment in time that we are, I want to help as many young drummers or percussionists that are here in the island, because unfortunately there's not a lot of input. You know, there's not a lot of people that can, you know, grab these guys here that are super talented and show them what they need to learn, you know. Yeah. So if I can share the little that I know, you know, I think that's important to me, and that also keeps me sane, you know.
That's excellent.
And so many things, but yeah, definitely exercise, man, and follow your passion and help others, you know, if you can. You know, that will definitely keep you sane, and just feel positive, man. You got to think positive, because like we always say, things will pass, and hopefully there's the end of the tunnel at some point, you know.
That's amazing.
I hope that helped.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's exactly it. And you know, just like it in general, just by what you were talking about with your story growing up as a kid, there's a lot of kids out there too that are connecting to their roots, you know, like just the way that you saw Horacio and Santana, you know, they're connecting the dots. And so
yeah,
right now is a good time to open that page in your life as well. I'm pretty sure for a lot of people to do some research, connect and play and learn as much as you can right now. So
yeah, it's the best time to do that, man. You have the time to do and to fine tune and to search and study and find out what is it that drives you and that what is that you love that makes you who you are as a musician. You know, it's a great time to do that if you can keep focused. You know, and I think, you know, it's funny, but kids don't necessarily have, you know, if you have a mortgage, if you have a car, if you have things that you have to pay, if you have a certain lifestyle that you have to find money to pay for, it's different, because you have to find the money. If you have kids, you know, I'm lucky. I have no kids. You know, not that I'm lucky because I don't have any kids. I would, you know, eventually, if I ever do have kids, it's a beautiful thing as well. But I don't have that responsibility. So you know, I got peers. You know, Fausto has kids. He's another peer of us. You know, he's a friend of mine, and he's got to feed those kids, man. So imagine what, you know, some people are going through, and it's hard. But younger guys, you know, they have the time to, you know, just sit there, and if they don't have kids and they're growing up, you know, I'm sure that it's way easier somehow to focus. And I find that a lot of the kids, you know, the kids that I teach and I help, and my friends and my peers down here, the other drummers growing up, they're cool, man. They're having a great time, because this moment gives them the opportunity to do exactly what you just said, to focus and practice and do what they love to do. So if they don't have kids.
Beautiful, man. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. Seriously, I once again, it's always a pleasure to see you, man. And hopefully we got to get out there in Puerto Rico one of these days. And I know there's 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗘𝗦 over there too, and Danny Diaz, and a lot of our guys are from Puerto Rico, and some guys live there. So
yeah,
hopefully, man, when this mess is over, we'll make it out there. And
I can't wait for you guys to come down, man. I'm telling you, there's so many things. I think Puerto Rico is waiting with open arms for you guys, for LP to come down and visit, you know, everybody, and have a great artist moment here. I think it'll be a great thing to do once this whole thing passes, and take some legendary pictures and hang out, and it's a beautiful thing. Is that we have to connect again, man. You guys got to come down. We're waiting.
Absolutely. We're definitely, man. It's a must.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you so much once again. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about what you're doing and what you're up to and where you're teaching?
Well, I mean, as far as, I'm not really teaching online lessons right now. I'm teaching everybody here at home or locally in Puerto Rico. But I have a website where I've been working on my music. My website is 𝗘𝗦𝗖𝗔𝗣𝗔.com. And I've shared a couple of songs there, and some other little things that you can get on my website. Also, social media, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, 𝗘𝗦𝗖𝗔𝗣𝗘, Instagram, 𝗬𝗐𝗑𝗑𝗠𝗑𝗠𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑𝗑 is just put my name down in Google, and I'm sure lots of things will pop up. You know, there's lots of videos on YouTube as well. Tony Escapa. You know, it's easy to find us. I can't run from the IRS today, man.
You're out there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm out there, man. It's unfortunate, but.
Tony, thank you so much. Un abrazo fuerte, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you again for your time, and please take care, my friend.
Man, same to you guys. Thank you for having me be part of LP Stories. I appreciate so much the opportunity, and I want to say hello to 𝗟𝗩 Ortiz. I saw something over there. 𝗟𝗩 is a great percussionist. We get together with 𝗟𝗩 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗥𝗘𝗦, man. I love you, 𝗟𝗩. I love you guys. Thank you for the opportunity.
A ti, gracias. Bueno, thank you, Tony.
Gracias. Ciao.
Ciao.